Hey guys, Lucas Saga here. Today I have a new series for the channel called Goo or Glue, where we look at every meta deck that is in the format and we decide if the deck is Goo, it's a good deck, or if it's Glue, it's for glue eaters and you should throw it away. This week we are looking at Yummy. I have here Julien with me down below.
What's up, guys? Yeah, we're doing this series together, so we'll be posting every other video on each other's channels.
Yeah, absolutely. So there should be a Draco Tail, Shadal, Canine one going up on his channel about the same time as this. So really, really exciting video. May come the day after. I'm not really too sure about what his schedule is, but we're definitely gonna do one. Starting off with Yummy here. Um, It's a pretty standard list, honestly. One thing that I did want to talk about is we do have Pure Remap. I think this is a card that is very, very good that a lot of people are not playing right now. The main thing with this deck is that a lot of the starters it has just they lose to one card, and you don't want your normal summon to lose to one card. You know, how do you feel about this card, Julian?
Yeah, I really like Purist Map because like Cupsy is the most important like card to start with in this deck, and so you just want to play 5 copies of it with Purist Map. And sometimes you activate it when you already have a Cupsy, and they actually you're like, "Oh, we're in there, we're in there."
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's the weakest start to your deck, but it's not by any means. And if you do open like a copy of Cupsy and a copy of Puri Map, it's basically the same thing as opening 2 of any name, because you can still search for a Cupsy at the start of your turn, normal summon the Cupsy. If they interact with you, you can special the other Cupsy from your hand and continue playing. I think that this deck really, really needs to play this card, as it just gives you better 1-card starters into there, as well as it ups your starter count. So like in this list, we could technically just play like a cookie and a lollipop to replace the Puri map, and it'd be the same amount of consistency. But if for some reason you felt like you needed to go up in card count, it does also add more additional starters to your deck. Not that we are ever limited on starters. There's a ton of starters we're not even playing. Like we're not playing 1-for-1 in this deck, where we're not maxed out on the names. We're not maxed out on Puri map even. But it's definitely something that you can consider. For consistency, I would give this deck like probably like a 9 out of 10. It can go even higher. It doesn't have any 2-card combos. The only thing that I have a problem with this deck. There's no like additional like half combos the deck has. But really, the deck is very consistent. It also gets to play a very large amount of non-engine here. So if you look, we're playing maxed Fualos, maxed Pirellia, 3 Ash Blossoms, and we're playing like a large board breaker package. But it's basically getting to 20 non-engine, which is what Prime Rizio was playing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, one more thing about the Purist Map thing is that it doesn't give your opponent any information when you activate it, right? Because you have to activate it at the start of your main phase no matter what. So it's not like they're like, what does this mean about their hand? No, it just means that I opened that card. Like it literally doesn't say anything else.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, this deck is super consistent. You have like I think 95% consistency just because you're playing how many? 15, 16 1-card starters. So that's so strong.
17. Oh, 16. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah, 16 1-card stars is really, really good. One thing I did want to talk about is the amount of surprise in the deck. This is definitely an optional thing with the deck on how many surprises you can play. You can go anywhere from playing 1 to 3 of this card. I think that 1 is probably a little bit too risky in the current format. I think that 2 is the correct number, as well as playing this little fox guy down here. Once again, still can't say his name yet. I've been practicing, but not good enough. But the fox guy lets you recycle your surprise, so you kind of have like 3 copies of surprise in your deck, as well as with a board breaker approach like Droplet. You can use the fox guy to reset Droplet, which is actually really, really good, just in general.
Yeah, and also like surprise is actually a good card to open. Like it's not bad to open at all. It can help you push through boards and like as long it's a semi brick, right? It's kind of like mouse in the mirror and malice. You don't mind opening it as long as you open engine. And in this deck, since you open engine so often, like it's not bad at all to play multiple copies of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that like one of the most dangerous like hand combinations you can open going second is Obedience School and Surprise. It feels like you break like any board with just engine if you open those two. It just feels totally unfair.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on,
Price
let's.
stays Snatchy, so good.
Yeah, you get to put the snatchy in back in here. Oh, it's disgusting. And then you have a like Minion and a Croaky. One thing that I did want to say is this is also something you can do optional. One thing I've seen a lot of people doing is they have taken a Croaky out of their deck altogether and they're just playing 1 field spell. I think that's bad. Trev has been dying on this hill that you don't need the other field spell. I agree. I don't think you need 2, or I don't think you need a Croaky and Minion, but I think if you're going to do that, you should play 2 Minions then. You need a way to like constantly cycle back your names, and having 2 field spells and being able to activate one over the other one is how you actually achieve a grind game in the deck. And if you only have one, then you have to do like really, really weird things to try to get them into the graveyard. One thing I talked about in my like how to beat Malice video that was uploaded the other day is if you are starting to get into a situation where you're getting decked out because they have removed your minion from play, um, one thing you can do to get the like field spell off of your field and then the grave is you can use surprise effect to add it to your hand and discard it for hand size, which on the following turn would then let you put back all your synchros so you can continue to climb up and break boards that way. The only problem with doing it that way is that it gives them a turn where they're able to basically interact with you, and you're wasting a lot of resources just to achieve that like counter to decking out. And so I think you should probably just play more field spells rather than having to rely on that one interaction there to do it. But you can also do that with surprise, trying to like loop your field spells and get to a continuous loop of just how he's having them.
So for the extra deck, it's pretty standard. We play one of each synchro, and you don't need to play more because again, the field spell can recycle them, and also they themselves put themselves back in the extra deck. So yeah, so one of each is fine. Then we played 2 bridges to Herald. That's optional. You can choose to play 1 to 2 bridges to Herald. You definitely don't need more than that. I think Metal Marcher is probably the best one, just because it lets you revive an actual yummy name to turn into Snatchy, and the Starham's also not bad because even though it takes a discard, you can make Starham under Obedience School when you should easily have a discard because you add names to a hand that you don't need after having all your names on the field, and then you can immediately make a Herald. The other thing is that Starham, if it gets stopped, is Light Beast, so you can always turn it into Snatchy, worst case scenario. And on future turns, you can discard 2 cards, which I know is a lot, but you can get in games where you have a lot of advantage, maybe some doubles in your hand that you can afford to discard, and summon this guy back to again make another Snatchy. So it definitely is a good card.
One thing I want to talk about with Starham here is that I view Starham less as like a bridge to a Herald directly, except when you get Obedience School. That's kind of his only purpose when you get Obedience School. But it basically lets you trigger a name whenever you want to. One cool thing about Starham is it doesn't negate the monster that it special summons back like all the other bridges do. And you can use this on things like Cookie. And Cookie specifically says that if it's summoned by the effect of a synchro monster, it gets the other effect. So it doesn't have to be summoned off of a yummy synchro monster. So it says, or if this card was special summoned by the effect of a synchro monster, you can destroy that monster instead. So being able to use Starham aggressively to revive your Cookie and pop something is really good. It also lets you keep having light beast names on the field, so Minion's going to continue to boost them up. One thing with Starham as well is that the recursion for it is really not that difficult to get to. There are a lot of cards that are just kind of dead as you start to progress through the game. Things like extra engages, extra obedience gold, even extra names because you have so many of them. You'll be able to like discard those to special summon back Starham, which just gets you like a free Link 1 whenever you're wanting to later into the game.
Yeah, then so we have 2 heralds. I think 2 heralds is like pretty important because you should always be making one on your turn. And if you're under Obedience School, you just like set up so that you can make one like in the first action on the next turn. And then when you're interrupting your opponent, thanks to Lollipo, the synchro monster, you can have so many bodies to just make another one for free. Yeah, so 2 heralds pretty necessary. 3 snatchies just so that you never run out of link ones. Just going on your first turn, you usually want to make 2 to 3 snatchies, and then if you make 3 and you don't have any more, then you use a field spell and you put them back. The recycling is great in this deck. Amirage is to turn any hand trap into an extra push. So if you're going into a board and you have like not Cupsy, right? You have a name that doesn't actually do anything. You might as well normal summon a hand trap, make Amirage. That way you special summon your name. If they had outed your name, it would have been the same as if they can out Amirage, right? So you might as well get the extra push from just special summoning your name.
Mhm.
Then we have Kagari, which obviously is part of the Hornet drones and Engage package. Just that by itself is full combo. Then we have Link Spider for when we get Nib. We can turn it into a level 1 tuner, which is great. And SP, just a good versatile card. Also very useful for like grind games. If all your monsters, you lose your field spell, SP is very useful for that grind game to then out there like boss monsters like Ash Blossom. And then Onari, like we talked about earlier, just helps you reset your droplets, your surprise. It also has, the secret effect at the bottom that if it's destroyed, based on the number of field spells on the field, you can either pop a card non-targeting or burn your opponent for 1500. And if there's 2 field spells, you can do both.
Mhm. Yeah. So
This card also does provide protection for your field spells. If it's on the field, your opponent can't target field spells.
yeah, I did see some combos where people were basically making Onari in their turn 1 combo and using the surprise that they searched to try to extend further. So the number was basically like Onari plus you'd get to Herald plus you'd get to like a Synchro monster and surprise reset. The only thing that I dislike about this combo specifically is that it plays into Nib really hard. You don't get to that Herald until you've basically committed your surprise, and so I'm not a big fan of it. But honestly, it does protect your minion from things like SP. So if you only play 1 field spell, that's probably the combo you should be doing. But once again, I did state earlier, I think you should just be on at least 2 field spells with this deck. Looking at the side deck here, Nothing too special. In this list specifically, since we're playing 6 chummies in the deck, we have to have like the possibility of playing 6 go first cards. One cool thing about Droll is even though Droll is like a kind of demanded card in the format because of the like high ceiling combo decks that are going around, Droll also just kind of serves as a go first card against basically every deck. Because if you only get your one search going second, it's going to make all your other non-engine cards like not as powerful as well. So like your thrust is going to lose value. Your talents is only going to be able to take control, look at their hand. You don't have the option to like try to draw additional cards. So you can bring in Droll as an additional card if these other cards don't cover the matchup entirely. Let's look at some of these optional cards down here that are really, really good against Yummy. So we can really decide if this deck's good or bad. Starting off here, we have any Bishial monster. Julien, do you want to explain why these are good?
So first of all, like they're able to banish your names from the grave, and if your opponent's able to outgrind you, like take your field spells out of rotation, you have no way to get those names back. The second thing is that Bishials are big. They have a lot of defense, a lot of attacks compared to these little cats right here, and usually dragon is better than cat. So pretty much, yeah, if your field spell gets outed, there's no way to out a Bishial. Like they put a Bishial in the fence, and the only way for you to actually out it is to either use Cookie's effect when special summoned by a Synchro Monster, which if your opponent's trying to stall you out, they just won't activate anything, so your Synchro Monsters like won't be able to trigger, and to use a Croaky. So again, like if your opponent is able to out both your field spells, or if you choose to play only one field spell and it gets outed, like you're screwed. You can't ever out a Bishial.
And next thing is Contexty here. Julien has come up with a pretty smart way to play around Contexty using Secure Guard. It should be flying across the screen right now. But basically what you do is you overlay or you link off any 2 monsters into IP Massacre Marina, which is already like not the worst card to play in general, just because you can make it in some inboards. And you turn it into a Secure Gardener, which even though that card doesn't really serve as a purpose as a link monster, we can synchro with it in this deck, which is something that no other deck is really able to do. It also enables all the other little names that are in your hands just kind of summon themselves, and then you can continue playing the game. I think of Contexty kind of like a homework check. That is a term that Julien stated earlier in one of our earlier videos. So where if you are prepared for Contexty, it's not really going to do anything at all. If you're unprepared for Contexty, it may be good into your board. One other thing you can do with Contexty is you can hold this card until they pass turn, basically. And as soon as they try to summon to interact with you, you can give them the Contexty. The only problems that I have with this specific interaction, they still get some pops out of it. They still get some sort of disruptions, whether it's a Cookie Book of Moon, it's a Cookie Pop, it's like a draw off of their Cupsy, a Lollipo, Spin, or Banish. They're going to get some sort of interaction, so your Contexty isn't really doing the job of a non-gen card that you're wanting it to like basically force their board to end on nothing. I will say it is pretty impactful at that point. But one other problem is that a lot of different Yummy players are playing Droplet in their main deck. So if you give them a Contexty and they have Droplet, it just feels so terrible because you gave them free food and you added their own card. Next up, we have Fenrir. We just saw a game actually with Amai. Do you think this card is good or bad, Julien?
I don't think it's that good. I think that it like targeted removal is not that good against Yummy in general. I know that you can use it to target the field spell, but Herald can negate it. It can just get Book of Moon, and then if they try to out your field spell, you just use a surprise to protect your field spell. And that's again like going back to what you want to play more than one surprise, because if you can end with 2 surprises on your opponent's turn, you auto win the game because you have one one surprise that you use to just make sure your field spell like that's like your holy shrine. You cannot have that field spell be outed, otherwise your grind game becomes terrible. Especially like banish face down, like that's terrible for you. So yeah, so if you have 2 surprises, like you're in a really good spot. And yeah, so Fenrir is like okay, I think. Like it could definitely be better. I do like the ability to like banish the field spell face down, but I think that's preventable on the side of the Yummy player.
Yeah. I think that Fenrir may be a little better than we're giving it credit for. Well, one thing that's cool is if you drop the Fenrir and they're not like directly prepared by already having the Snatchy on their field, and they have to like later tag out a Synchro Monster, the Chainlink is Chainlink 1 Fenrir targeting their field spell, and they have to choose to either give up their like trigger effects of their guys that they just summoned or choose to Herald negate it. And really, it's just a difficult situation. I like cards that kind of complicate the game state when you're going second, because if you play a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And your opponent does a full combo, you are not supposed to win the game. That is just how the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Works right now. If they are able to full combo you, you are not supposed to win the game. And so anything that can complicate that, maybe give you a little bit of an edge as you are more prepared for the duel as your opponent is something that I like. And so I think that Fenrir is okay, but it's definitely not as good as some of the other options we have here. Following up, we have Pankratops. This card is basically the same thing as Fenrir, except it just does a worse job. This card saw some play in the OCG because they don't have Fenrir at all. Like Fenrir is banned over there for some reason. And so I think that's the only reason that this card saw play compared to some of the other options that we have coming up. Then we have Bell. What do you think about Bell, Julian?
I think Bell's pretty interesting. The thing is that Bell is one of those things that like by itself it's not enough, and you can say that about a lot of these cards. But I think that Bell is like it's like an okay card that when paired with a really good card does a great job because it's like how you finish off your opponent. So if you activate Dark Ruler, the only way to like push past that is for them to surprise Bell. You know, like same with Impulse. You need those cards to be paired, but that's why it's good. Like some of these decks can play so many non-engine that having paired non-engine is really easy actually. So you just want to build your decks to have those pairs be possible. And also, fun fact, you can bell the third effect of surprise, which is like the secret effect, quote unquote, that no one really thinks about to like protect your field spell. So if you have Fenrir plus bell, that's actually also really good because your Fenrir go negate, go banish the field spell. If they go surprise to like tag it out, you go bell, and they're like, oh no! And now this your Fenrir goes from being this like, oh, this guy with this chill guy with 2400 attack to be like, oh my god, he's huge. He has 2400 attack. What are we gonna do?
I will say that when you get into that situation and they have a strong monster, you need to make sure that if they're the ones who are having the strong monster and you're playing Yummy, you need to try to use Cookie to lower its attack. That way you can get over it. As soon as they change that monster from attack mode to defense mode, it's cooked. We don't have a way to get over that guy, so we got to make sure that that does not become the game state. Moving on here, we have Nib. I think Nib is a really interesting card versus this deck, even though all of the combos can play around Nib, even the one card combos. Nib has some versatility of you actually using it during your own turn to kind of break the board as well as they're trying to like climb up and interact with you. But also into all of like the obedience schooled combos, like no matter what, it feels very poor when you get nibbed. The main thing that makes it poor is the fact that you can't link off the link token into Link Spider because you're beast locked. And so losing out on that like main extender that also opens up like other extenders is really, really good. I still don't know if I would be really wanting to play Nib into this deck, but I definitely think it's something to look at. What do you think?
It's another one of those needs to be heavily paired cards. Like Nib plus Bell is really good when the Obedience School combo you. But even then, like they're supposed to have a normal summon plus another level 1 in their hand when they Obedience School combo. So you need like Nib, Ash, Bell. Like you need like a really big like 3-card combo of cards, which makes this card definitely lose value. But if you were playing a deck like Malice or like Yummy, and you can afford to play, 20, 21, 22 non-engine, like some crazy numbers, then Nib might be good for that deck.
Yeah, I agree. And then going over to Ogre. Ogre is a card that's really weird because it counters a lot of the starters very, very well. But also into other starters, it does literally nothing at all. So if they start with normal summon Cookie, they link Cookie into Snatchy. They go Snatchy effect and try to place a field spell. If you Ogre their Snatchy right there, it turns off every name as an extender. They can't have another copy of Cookie. They can't have a Lollipo. It just turns it off to where they can't even play the game. Because their minion, the field spell, they have to have a link 1 on the field to even activate the effect. They also have to have a link 1 to special summon the other guys from their hand. But on the other hand, if they activate Obedient School and they summon 3 guys from deck, that Ogre is never doing anything. It is so useless. And into like the 2-card combos with this deck, like specifically if you open like double name, there's a combo that summons 2 guys and like kind of climbs up in synchros into Herald before you even do anything. So you can play around Droll and Ogre by doing it that way, because I mean you're getting so far so fast that I mean they're not going to Ogre just like a random effect that doesn't do anything. And by the time you have Herald, you can't even activate the Ghost Ogre because of Herald being kind of like a crazy floodgate there. Holding the Ghost Ogre for your turn is almost never good enough as well, because usually if the Yummy player is able to full combo you and you have one of your non-engine cards be a kind of like not proactive hand trap versus them, it's a reactive one, then you are kind of too far behind. They're going to have too many ways to like synchro summon that one Ghost Ogre on a statue effect is not going to be enough to stop them. Moving on, we have the spells now. We have Dark Ruler. Julian, what do you think about Dark Ruler?
I think Dark Ruler is, like I said, like everything needs to be paired. Dark Ruler is the one that needs to be paired like the least. Like it still needs to be paired, right? One Dark Ruler is not gonna fully cook your Yummy opponent, but one Dark Ruler plus like almost any other form of disruption, like will actually just like stop them from disrupting you. One Dark Ruler plus 1 Impulse, one Dark Ruler plus 1 Bell. Any way you have to stop surprise really, will do a really, really good job. Like if they have only one Snatchy engrave, right? And you Dark Ruler them, and then they go surprise, and a Bishial could work there, right? There's just a lot of combinations with Dark Ruler that are really good, which makes this card like probably I would say the best card into Yummy.
I agree. It also has like really good coverage into everything else in the format, like Vanquish Soul K9 and Christian K9. I mean, even into like the Malice deck, it's not bad. You're able to trade it with an allied code and with a like Firewall bounce. I think this card just
Hmm.
has really good coverage overall, and it should be like a staple in everyone's side deck. And the fact that it has good coverage into Yummy too is not the best, considering now that we're arguing that this card should be in every side deck and it's the best against Yummy, kind of counteracts us really having versatility into different things.
Yeah. The last thing about Dark Ruler, right, obviously it says that your opponent won't die this turn. Against Yummy, that's completely fine. If you take control of the game, and the thing is, they have all their resources laid out in front of you, right? They have their field spell, everything. Like, obviously, they're gonna use their surprise to special summon, like, because they're gonna try to combo you, and then you have the out to that. Now, all of a sudden, you're able to banish their field spell. You can banish their synchro monsters too. If you're playing like Malice or something. So yeah, outing all their resources makes it really strong. Like, just that it's okay, like you can't finish the game right there, right then.
Absolutely. I did want to touch on one thing from earlier, because you just reminded me of it. One thing I've seen a lot of people doing is if they draw a minion and they summon Snatchy, they use the Snatchy effect to then just place the minion from their hand. I think people need to stop doing this immediately. The main reason for that is that it basically introduces your minion to the field while wasting the effect of Snatchy. And if you do play 2 field spells, like you do play a Croaky in your deck, like you're correctly supposed to do, um, then you don't have the ability to kind of like hide your minion. If you just activate the minion from your hand, you proceed to do a full combo. Then whenever you special summon back Snatchy later in the turn, you can use the effect to then replace it with an Croaky, which is one going to help you play through Nib a little bit better because you're going to get the hidden effect of a Croaky to special summon from deck whenever they nib you. But also, it's going to put your minion in the graveyard, so you can use the minion effect on your turn 1 to basically put itself back in your deck and hide it from them. And if they can't SP your minion, then the whole like argument of we don't need to fully break their board or we don't have to fully kill them as long as we can clear off their resources, that's not a thing anymore because minion is just such a powerful threat just having it in rotation for the deck. But we can move on here. We can look at Droplet. Droplet's pretty much the same thing as Dark Ruler. I will say there's one a little bit weird interaction versus this deck specifically. It's when they have Herald. Activating Droplet, you have to send a monster from your field basically to stop them from negating it, which is definitely a loss in resources. Sending monsters from your hand that you didn't have a way to engage into the game state is definitely better, but we don't have that option if they have Herald in the field previously. I will say that it doesn't target, and so it's obviously a very, very good card versus this deck. Being able to negate their synchro monsters instead of tagging out and then being able to dodge it is a fantastic thing. And because of that, I think that it's still worth bringing in. It's still one of the most powerful cards versus this format. But if they have a Herald, you are like kind of introduced into like a weird game state.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, it's definitely not as good as Dark Ruler, but it's amazing at being that second breaker next to Dark Ruler. So that's one good thing about it. It's really amazing when also they only obedience will combo you because now they don't start their turn with a Herald on field. So there's a lot of good applications for it.
Next thing is Eclipse. Eclipse is also one of the most fantastic cards to have if they started with the Obedience Gold combo. Not specifically because it like outs so many things or it can't get negated. It's because it takes up even more spaces on their field. If you are able to Eclipse them, they usually have 3 monsters in their main monster zone. And even if they chain to Synchro, now they only have 3 monster zones to play with. And they've already like wasted a Synchro here. It's really weird for them, basically, is what it comes down to. You can also use this card as a very good board breaker versus them. And it's a good go first card. Being able to set this card, activate it when they normal summon like a Cookie or a Lollipop or even a Yummy, like a Cupsy. Even if they get surprised, they have to have another name just to introduce like plays into it with their Yummy spell. And so it's like pretty good at oppressing them from playing as well as breaking their board. And these two are pretty much exactly the same. This is Lightning Storm and Harpies. How do you feel about these two?
I think that they can only fall into the category of like secondary breaker, but they do a really good job. Is that so? Like if you open, droplets or dark ruler with duster or storm, you would start duster or storm first, force them to surprise and put pretty much all their bodies on the field at once, so that then when you go dark ruler or again droplet, you can hit everything at the same time. It like unlayers their board, right? Because their board is like layered in the grave and on the field, but the grave is controlled by their spell and trap zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that Lightning Storm and Harpies are going to see more play in the format just across like a wide spread of events. Just because these cards are very good into everything. It's always like either a very high impact or a very medium impact against every deck. And that's really what you're looking for in a side deck card. You want something that has the most coverage. And in this like pre-ban list format that we are in, it kind of does that job. Looking at the like specific go first guys, we're going to skip over Imperm. We're just going to talk about these last two here. There can only be one. This can only be played by a few decks, but obviously versus this deck, it's like an FTK. There's nothing that this deck can really do. They basically have to hope that they open like Hornet drones, and they have to hope that they play around stuff on accident and then can climb into like an SP. You can technically play Anima. If you play Anima, it's not the worst of getting into an SP. But the thing is that once you lock yourself with SP up in the EMZ, it points left and right. You are never able to summon a Snatchy again unless they choose to activate a card. So if they Tikaboo you and you just watch them and say you have the Tikaboo and you Tikaboo them, you can just watch them play. Like who cares? All they're gonna do is they're gonna special summon a guy. They're gonna go okay. They're gonna summon another guy. They're gonna go okay. They're gonna go SP target your Tikaboo so I can play the game. And you go okay, play the game. You can't cry. And so it's a really cool thing there that Tikaboo, even if they do have like an out for it, if they've already started playing it, it's still very, very oppressive for it. What do you think of this card, Julien? Is there anything I'm missing here?
No, that makes sense. And then like the last card is Impulse, and that card also just like it's the same. It's like it can be used as a hand trap and a breaker, which makes it really good into this deck. Although as a hand trap, like you just kind of praying, you're like, oh please don't have the extender, right? Unless it's paired, obviously. But it does stop the one card combo lines. And then again, it like this is why I love Dark Ruler so much. Dark Ruler works with, like I said, Book of Eclipse, Droplet, Duster, Storm, and Impulse. Because Impulse again, you just impulse the surprise, right? So yeah. So it's again, it's one of those secondary as a breaker, and then as a hand trap, it can do the job, but they need to not have the extender unless you obviously have multiple hand traps.
Yeah. I will say one thing that's different about Bell and Impulse into this deck is if you can Bell their minion, being able to destroy it and make it harder for them to get back to it is pretty good. Because they're not going to have an attack boost for that turn unless they do something really, really weird just to get it back in play. And then finally, the last card that we're going to talk about here is Chain Disappearance. This is a card that has 0 coverage except into this deck specifically, but against this deck, it is just so rough to deal with. If they activate Obedience School, you flip up Chain Disappearance, you get to banish every name in their deck, and it's just over. This gets a lot easier to play around as soon as we get the 4th Yummy name, the Marshmallow, as well as our Field Spell kind of becomes a little bit less important to protect because we can put it back with that card. But honestly, it is just a really, really tough situation playing this format into Chain Disappearance. But honestly, you shouldn't play this card. This card is only good into Yummy, and Yummy is not 100% of your locals or your regional, your YCS, whatever you're attending here. That's pretty much all the thoughts that I had here. If I had to give this deck a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably say this deck is a good 7.8. If Prime Tearlament is the best deck ever created, I would say this deck is like a very solid 7.8. And I'm going to be very harsh with grading these. But I think this deck has some good attributes to it. It also has some bad attributes. And I think those will get fixed later on. What do you think, Julien?
I think for me it's a little more rough. I think I'd give it a 6.5 rating just because I don't think it's well positioned in the format. I think that Malice is way too good of a matchup against it because of its ability to banish the field spell. It has so many ways to banish. I also think that Mitsu Raizio is really strong against it because of the Raigeki from Murakumo. And to me, that makes it not that great right now. It could get better later, with a ban list or something like that to make those other decks not as good. But for now, I just don't like it that much. I also think that like the whole field spell thing where the second that card is gone, you just start panicking because all your guys are super tiny and you can't even beat over like monsters with more than 1800 defense. And the way to play around that is to just make your ceiling worse by not playing like the second field spell, a Croaky, which is just a disruption, a way to play through disruptions, but when you activate it, if they remove monsters from your field. So to me, the deck has a lot of issues right now. And in order for those issues to get fixed, you either have to play your deck weird or the format needs to change.
That's totally fair. That's going to be our ratings for this one here. Like I said, Julien is going to have the Draco Tail video on his channel for that. If you want to check it out, check his video or check his channel out in the description box down below. Besides that, I do have the spreadsheet available still. That is also going to be in the description. It's going to show you all of the correct ways about how you sequence your Yummy combos. Those combos I mentioned, it's going to show you the step-by-step guide on how you can get those. I did want to say, if you cannot afford to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And this is like your last $10 to your name, do not buy the spreadsheet. Please, please, please. I wanted to make this clear. I think Triff made a very good point. This is not meant for everybody. Spreadsheets are basically meant as a get all the information in one solid place to try to accelerate your advancement with a deck. It's definitely not needed. There are a lot of like resources online. Like my videos, I don't think that my videos are useless. However, I do think that there is a lot of information that's spread out and it would make it infinitely easier for you to pay the $30 or however much the spreadsheet is at the time to concise it down into one thing that you can just look at for everything. But I just want to go over that really fast. Besides that, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day. And if you guys wouldn't mind commenting, and subscribing, I'd appreciate it.